Welcome to our channel. Today we're diving into 5 scientifically backed tricks to help you learn smarter and more efficiently. That's right, we're going to geek out about the brain and how to make it work better for you. Think of it this way, your brain is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And just like there are techniques for building strong muscles, there are techniques for building strong brains. These 5 tricks are all about maximizing your brain power so you can learn more effectively and remember things longer. Let's get started. All right, learners, let's talk about spaced repetition. This is a fancy way of saying, don't cram. You've got to space out your studying over time.
Think about it like this. Imagine you're trying to learn a new dance move. If you practice it once and then never do it again, chances are you're going to forget it pretty quickly. But if you practice it a few times today, then a few more times tomorrow, and then a few more times the next day, you're much more likely to remember it.
That's because you're giving your brain time to process the information and store it in long-term memory. So, how do you actually do spaced repetition? Well, it's all about timing. Let's say you've got a big test coming up in a couple of weeks. Instead of cramming the night before, start studying a little bit each day. Review the material, take some practice quizzes, and then give your brain a break. Then come back to it the next day and do it again. You'll be amazed at how much more you remember. The science behind this is pretty cool. Every time you revisit information, you're basically telling your brain, hey, this is important, don't forget this. And the more you do it, the stronger those neural connections become. It's like building a bridge. The more times you cross it, the sturdier it gets.
But here's the best part. Spaced repetition doesn't just help you remember things longer. It also helps you learn new things faster. That's because when you space out your studying, you're giving your brain a chance to forget some of the information. And believe it or not, forgetting is actually a good thing. When you have to work a little harder to recall information, it actually strengthens the memory even more. It's like exercising a muscle. The more you challenge it, the stronger it gets.
So, ditch the cramming and embrace the power of spaced repetition. Your brain will thank you for it. Let's talk about active recall, another powerful technique that can help you learn smarter. This one's all about actively trying to retrieve information from your memory instead of just passively reading it over and over again.
Think about it like this. Imagine you're trying to learn a new language. If you just read the dictionary definitions of words, you're probably not going to remember them very well. But if you actually try to use those words in conversation, you're much more likely to remember them. That's because you're actively engaging with the material and forcing your brain to work a little harder. So, how can you use active recall in your own studies? One great way is to use flashcards. Write a question or term on one side of the card and the answer or definition on the other side. Then test yourself by looking at the question side and trying to recall the answer without looking. It's like a mini quiz for your brain.
Another great way to use active recall is to try explaining concepts to someone else. Pretend you're teaching the material to a friend or family member. This forces you to really think about the information and put it into your own words, which helps solidify it in your memory. The science behind active recall is all about retrieval practice. When you actively try to recall information, you're strengthening the neural pathways associated with that information. It's like walking down the same path in the woods over and over again. The more you walk it, the clearer and more defined the path becomes.
And here's the best part. Active recall doesn't just help you remember things better, it also helps you identify your weak spots. When you're actively trying to recall information, you quickly realize which areas you need to focus on more. It's like a diagnostic tool for your brain.
So ditch the passive reading and embrace the power of active recall. Your brain will thank you for it. You might be surprised to hear this, but getting enough sleep is crucial for learning and memory. I'm talking about good quality sleep.
Think of sleep as your brain's opportunity to hit the save button on all that new information you've been feeding it. While you're catching those Z's, your brain is hard at work, moving information from short-term memory to long-term memory.
It's like your brain is having a late-night filing session, making sure everything is organized and put away in the right place. And here's the thing. If you're not getting enough sleep, you're essentially robbing your brain of this crucial filing time.
It's like trying to run a marathon without ever stopping to rest. You might be able to keep going for a while, but eventually you're going to crash and burn.
So how much sleep do you need for optimal brain power? Most adults need around 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. And it's not just about the quantity of sleep, but the quality of sleep as well.
Make sure you're sleeping in a cool, dark, and quiet environment to ensure you're getting the most restful sleep possible. But sleep does more than just consolidate memories. It also helps with cognitive function, attention, and creativity.
So, if you're feeling sluggish, unfocused, or just plain creatively drained, a good night's sleep might be just what the doctor ordered. Think of it this way: sleep is like hitting the refresh button on your brain.
It allows you to wake up feeling energized, alert, and ready to tackle new challenges. So, prioritize your sleep. It's not lazy. It's essential for a healthy brain and optimal learning.
All right, learners, it's time to shake things up. Let's talk about interleaved practice, a technique that involves mixing up different subjects or topics while you're studying.
Now, you might be thinking, wait, isn't it better to focus on one thing at a time? And while that might seem intuitive, research actually shows that interleaving can lead to better learning and retention.
Think about it like this. Imagine you're a basketball player practicing your shots. If you spend an hour shooting free throws, then an hour shooting jump shots, and then an hour shooting three-pointers, you're going to get pretty good at each individual shot type.
But when it comes to game time, you're going to have to switch between those shots quickly and seamlessly. That's where interleaving comes in. By mixing up your practice and switching between different shot types, you're forcing your brain to adapt and retrieve information in a more flexible way.
This leads to a deeper understanding of the underlying concepts and better transfer of knowledge to new situations. So, how can you use interleaving in your own studies? One way is to simply mix up the order of your study materials.
Instead of studying one subject or topic for a long period of time, try switching between different subjects every hour or so. Another way to use interleaving is to create practice problems that require you to apply knowledge from multiple subjects or topics.
This forces you to make connections between different concepts and strengthens your overall understanding. The science behind interleaving has to do with something called contextual interference.
When you switch between different subjects or tasks, you're creating a slight bit of interference that forces your brain to work harder to retrieve the relevant information. And as we've learned, the harder your brain has to work, the stronger those neural connections become.
So, ditch the linear study routine and embrace the power of interleaving. Your brain will thank you for the workout. Have you ever noticed that when you explain something to someone else, you understand it better yourself? That's not a coincidence.
Teaching others is one of the most effective ways to reinforce your own learning and boost your understanding. It's like taking a deep dive into the material and coming out on the other side with a newfound clarity.
When you teach someone else, you're forced to break down complex concepts into smaller, more digestible chunks. You have to organize your thoughts, use clear and concise language, and anticipate potential questions.
This process of actively engaging with the material helps solidify it in your own mind. Think about it like this. Imagine you're trying to explain a scientific concept to a child.
You can't just use technical jargon or complicated diagrams. You have to find creative ways to make it relatable and understandable. This process of simplification forces you to really grasp the core principles behind the concept.
But teaching doesn't have to be formal or involve standing in front of a classroom. You can teach a concept to a friend, family member, or even just talk it out loud to yourself. The act of verbalizing the information helps to solidify it in your memory.
Another benefit of teaching others is that it helps you identify any gaps in your own understanding. When you're forced to explain something, you quickly realize which areas you're still fuzzy on.
This gives you an opportunity to go back and review those areas, strengthening your overall comprehension. So, the next time you're trying to learn something new, don't be afraid to put on your teacher hat.
Find a willing student, or even just a rubber duck, and start explaining. You'll be amazed at how much you learn in the process. Thanks for watching. If you found these tips helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Keep learning smart. Remember, your brain is capable of amazing things, and with the right techniques, you can unlock your full learning potential. So get out there and make those brains work.